Mia stood by the entrance of the community center, adjusting her dress nervously. This was the day. The day everyone would gather to celebrate the opening of the new library, a dream that had come alive with the help of countless donations. Mia had poured her heart into this project, rallying the community, organizing fundraisers, and keeping the spirit alive. It was her moment, and all she could do was feel the flutter in her chest, a mix of excitement and dread. But then there he was, Jackson. Late as always, Mia had seen him walking through life with a kind of ease that both frustrated and fascinated her. He approached the crowd with his usual nonchalance, but today was different. Today he looked around with a hint of unease, as if he was stepping into a world he didn't quite belong to. She watched him mingle, laughing with old friends, exchanging casual words. But all Mia could focus on was the clock ticking behind her, each second a reminder of how important punctuality was. As Jackson walked closer, he spotted Mia standing alone. His eyes brightened and he waved. "Hey, I made it." The smile on his face was infectious, but frustration welled up in Mia. She replied, trying hard to keep her voice steady. I know, he said, running a hand through his hair. The familiar gesture made her heart flutter unexpectedly. Just then, the crowd began to gather around the donation plaque. It was time for the unveiling. Mia felt her stomach knot. This was the moment when everyone would see their names. Those who contributed helped shape this space. Jackson joined her, trying to catch her eye as the crowd whispered and pointed at the covered plaque. "Okay, everyone." Mia could barely hear herself over the excitement and chatter of the crowd. As the director of the community center stepped forward, Mia felt herself fixated on Jackson, standing just a little too close, with that slight, comfortable smile on his face. The director spoke passionately about the impact this library would have on the community. She highlighted the importance of each contribution, how everyone had played their part. Mia stood there, nodding, grateful for the chance to give back, but also anxious to see it all come together. And then, she felt the director's gaze shift. "And now we arrive at a very special moment," the director said, glancing at Mia and then at the cloth-covered plaque. Mia's heart raced. She felt a rush of pride swell as the cover was pulled away, revealing the names etched in gold lettering, community members, local businesses, and Mia's breath caught in her throat. There it was, plain as day, Jackson Miller, He hadn't told her he was donating. A rush of emotions flooded through her: anger, confusion, and a touch of betrayal. She turned to him, her heart thudding loudly in her chest. How could he keep something like this from her? With everyone watching, she felt a swell of heat rush to her cheeks. Jackson caught her eye, a flash of realization crossing his face, but she didn't let him finish. Her voice wavered, a mix of hurt and surprise. It felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. All eyes turned towards them, curiosity and judgment swirling in the atmosphere. "I wanted it to be a surprise," he said, his voice steady, "for you." She felt her voice raise slightly, unable to keep the disbelief from creeping in. Murmurs floated around them. Jackson's smile faded, replaced by a more serious expression. "I didn't think it was that important." Mia felt a knot tighten in her stomach. It was more than just his name on that plaque. It felt like another piece of him she'd never fully known. She looked away, her heart breaking for the friendship they once had. "You should have told me, Jackson. I worked hard for this." The director, sensing the rising tension, cleared her throat and continued the ceremony. Mia could barely focus on the words as she felt the world around her fade into a background hum. Jackson stood beside her, silent, but she could feel his presence heavy with unspoken thoughts. After the unveiling, the crowd began to break apart into smaller groups. Conversations flowed, but Mia felt a deep sense of isolation. Her hands trembled slightly as she caught her breath, still trying to process what had just unfolded. Jackson reached out, gently touching her arm. "Can we talk?" She wanted to say no, to walk away, but a part of her still cared for him and wanted to hear what he had to say. "Fine." They found a quiet corner away from the chatter and laughter. The chatter faded behind them as they stood facing each other. "Mia, I didn't mean to keep it from you. I didn't want you to wrongly imagine that I was trying to take any credit from your work." She shook her head, the hurt in her chest still raw. "But you could have shared it with me." He took a deep breath. "I thought it would ruin the moment if I told you beforehand." Mia crossed her arms, feeling the temperature of her anger cool slightly. "But I don't think that of you, Jackson. It isn't about reputation." He looked down for a moment, the weight of her words settling between them like an unspoken promise. Mia felt the world spin around her. Could she forgive him? The sincerity in his voice wrapped around her like a warm blanket. It was calming, but guilt tugged at her. What if forgiving him meant reopening old wounds? She studied his face, those deep eyes that had always held a promise of friendship through thick and thin. I wish you trusted me more. I wish we could be completely honest with each other," she said softly. Somewhere inside her, she felt that old bond still flickering. "I do trust you, Mia. I thought I was doing something good. I didn't realize how my silence would affect you. But please, don't let this moment between us fade away." She looked away for a moment, trying to sort through her conflicting feelings. Maybe it was time to step forward instead of always looking back. "Okay, Jackson, if we're going to mend this, it has to be the whole truth from now on." He nodded, a small smile breaking through the tension. They stood there, an understanding settling over the moment, and for the first time in what felt like ages, Mia could breathe again. The sting of betrayal hadn't completely faded, but a glimmer of hope shone through the cracks of their friendship. As they joined the rest of the crowd, Mia felt something shift again. The world still buzzed with excitement, books were being discussed, and laughter filled the air. Jackson stood beside her with a newfound openness, and though a long path lay ahead, for the first time that day, both of them were ready to step forward together. Perhaps in the end, the moment was not just about a plaque with names engraved, but about the power of trust and honesty in relationships. And beneath the surface of misunderstandings, both of them realized that sometimes, healing starts with a single, brave conversation. A hush fell over the crowd. Mia stood on stage, the soft glow of the spotlight illuminating her trembling hands. Her heart raced like a runaway train. The moment had finally arrived, the moment she'd worked for tirelessly, rallying her community to build what they now gathered to unveil, their very own library. Mia glanced at the rows of faces, some familiar, some strangers, all gathered in anticipation. But then, just as the director began to speak about the importance of this new space, the doors swung open. Jackson stepped inside, disheveled and late, a hint of panic in his eyes. Mia's stomach dropped. He had promised he would be there early, ready to support her. This was a big day, and now here he was, stumbling in as if he hadn't a care in the world. She shot him a look, hoping to convey everything she felt in one piercing glare: disappointment, annoyance, a hint of anger. Instead of catching her eye, he looked around, his posture tense, as if he were stepping into a world he didn't quite expect. As the director talked about the donor's generosity, Mia tried to focus on the words. Her heart was still heavy with the sight of Jackson standing at the back, looking lost. Why couldn't he have prioritized this moment? Why didn't he see how important it was? With a quick breath, she returned her gaze to the crowd, forcing a smile. Then the moment came. The director, with a flourish, gestured to the covered plaque that bore the names of all who had contributed. Every heart, every penny, every small act of kindness wrapped in one momentous reveal. The director said, smiling brightly. The tension in the air hung thick. Mia could almost feel electricity buzzing around her. With a deep breath, she waited with bated breath, heart pounding as she prepared to see their names, all those who had supported her and the community. The cloth was pulled away, and there it was, glistening in the light, the donation plaque. But as she scanned the list, Mia's eyes locked in on one name that struck her like a bullet. Jackson Miller, asterisk. No, her heart sank. She felt her breath hitch in her throat. The room spun around her as reality hit hard. She turned to Jackson, who was now moving towards her, a look of surprise on his face. But Mia was caught in the storm of her emotions: confusion, fury, betrayal. He hadn't told her. Everyone else had contributed openly, excitedly. But Jackson, he had kept this from her. The way he always kept his feelings, his intentions, wrapped tightly within himself. Mia, wait, he began, but Mia couldn't hear him over the chaos swirling inside her. As more people approached, excited whispers arose at the sight of all the names. Mia felt an icy grip around her heart. She wanted to shout, to demand answers. Instead, she felt a deep emptiness. Hadn't he shared this part of himself with her? They were supposed to be a team. They had talked late into the night about their dreams, their goals. Why keep such a big piece hidden away like it didn't matter? When she finally turned back to him, he seemed frozen in place like a deer caught in headlights. The hurt seeped into her words, thick like honey, heavy and slow. I thought you'd be proud, he said, his voice smaller than she expected. Her heart iced over for just a moment. She echoed incredulously. You didn't think a library built on community love was something I'd want to celebrate with you. As she spoke, she felt all their late-night conversations burning in her memory, dreams of building a community, hopes for the future, all the trust they'd shared. With every word she threw at him, she saw him retreat further into that confusion. I didn't want you to think I was doing it for attention, he said softly, but his eyes gave away a flicker of fear. Someone cleared their throat, attempting to steer the focus back to the event. Guests were now watching, eyes darting between Mia and Jackson, weighing the tension like a scale. The room felt suffocatingly heavy as she stood there, heart-wrenching against the backdrop of her momentous day. With a deep breath, Mia half turned from him, turning toward the gathering crowd again, desperately trying to rein in her emotions. You should have told me. As she spoke, she could see the impact of their confrontation ripple through the audience. Jackson looked like he wanted to shrink away, but he didn't. Mia, please, he whispered, his voice breaking just a little. I care about you and this project. She shot back. How is keeping secrets good? Something shifted in the way he looked at her, a light fizzling out, and she realized it was a moment of raw truth. He took a step closer, laying his hand on her arm gently. I've always worried that if people knew how much I cared, they'd think I was just doing it for the attention. Then you should have trusted me, Mia said, tears pricking at the corners of her eyes. It wasn't just about the plaque. It was about trust, the very foundation they'd built together. The room was tense, electrifying, but in that moment it felt like they were the only two people in the world. A quiet honesty hung between them like a thin thread, ready to snap or weave something new. Mia felt her breath hitch again, and she stepped back, pulling her arm from his grasp. The humility in his eyes dug deep under her anger, but that anger still held a firm grip on her heart. Why could you not just reach out and tell me? His eyes softened, and it was as if the walls he'd built came crumbling down. I thought it would overshadow you. This time she could see the pain behind his words. The fear of being misunderstood was something she recognized all too well. But Jackson, she said, feeling her defenses melt just a little, that's not how it works, not between friends. He took a deep breath, stepping closer again, his voice lower and sincere. I understand now. I assumed I knew how it would look, but I didn't think about how it would make you feel. At that moment, the air seemed to shift around them. The crowd faded into a soft background hum, their whispers nothing more than a lullaby. In the depths of her frustration, she realized something that rocked her to her core. She wanted to forgive him. First came honesty, and for a brief moment, truth broke through the conflict between them like dawn creeping through the darkest night. I need you to understand how much I value our relationship, Jackson. This moment means everything to me. He nodded slowly, absorbing her words. I get that now, I didn't want to risk losing what we have by being vulnerable. Silence is never safer, she replied gently. Jackson's expression shifted, determination lighting in his eyes. Okay. I promise no more silence. I want to be open with you. Tears stung her eyes, but they were not just tears of hurt, they were tears of relief. The anger that had held her captive softened enough for a smile to break through. The weight of their confrontation lifted, leaving a space where reconciliation could bloom. As they turned back toward the crowd, there was a new energy between them, one built on understanding rather than hesitation. The director, trying to regain focus, gave them a nod, as if sensing the raw honesty exchanging between the two. Feeling the warmth of connection, Mia took a deep breath and smiled again, genuinely this time. Jackson stood beside her, steadfast and ready to move forward. Together, they faced the audience, a united front. In that moment of unity, she understood that sometimes the hardest moments yield the greatest growth. She thought of all the things they would share, the truth that would guide them hand in hand through the future. The plaque behind them, now a testament not just to financial contributions, but to the strength of friendship. That day, they learned to carve a new path, one filled with understanding, trust, and above all, communication. They embraced the imperfection of their unfolding story, vowing that going forward, honesty would always be their guiding light. And as the applause echoed through the room, Mia felt triumph surge through her, not just for the library, but for the bond they had rekindled. Together, they moved toward a future rich with promise. Mia stood at the front of the community center, her heart pounding in her chest as the clinking of glasses filled the air. Every eye in the room was on her, and she felt weighty anticipation resting on her shoulders. They had just unveiled the new library, a dream brought to life through dedication, teamwork, and countless donations. This was her moment, her chance to shine, and yet something felt off. She cast a quick glance at the entrance. Jackson, her closest friend, was supposed to be there, but the clock's hands continued to move forward, each tick echoing louder in her ears. Mia had invited him to share this day, to stand by her side, but there she was, alone, grappling with a wave of disappointment. Then the door burst open abruptly. Jackson strolled in, hair tousled and a hint of panic flickering behind his eyes. Just when Mia thought the moment would fly away, he walked in late, like some character in a movie ready to turn the tide. Everyone else was already mingling, smiling, and capturing memories, but his entrance turned her stomach. As the director summarized the contributions that built the library, Mia's nerves tangled deeper. She knew Jackson had promised to be there, and his tardiness only deepened her uncertainty. Her heart raced, not just from excitement, but from a familiar frustration. He always showed up late, the director's voice pulled Mia's focus back. And now, let's take a moment to recognize the generosity of our donors. The crowd buzzed with excitement, eyes inevitably drawn towards the covered donation plaque at the front of the room. Mia held her breath, excitement swelling in her chest as the director stepped back to unveil the names carved in shining gold. As the cloth slipped away, she felt a rush of pride. They were all celebrating a shared mission, a community effort. But then she froze. She scanned the list of names, all the people who believed in the library as deeply as she did. And there it was, bold and undeniable, Jackson Miller**. The name hit her like a punch in the gut. She turned slowly to face him, confusion clouding her mind. Jackson stood there, eyes wide as realization dawned on him like a tidal wave crashing over the shore. She could feel her heart thud violently in her chest. He had kept this from her. It wasn't just his name etched on that plaque, it was a betrayal cloaked in generosity. Mia couldn't contain her voice, trembling with a mix of hurt and astonishment. He approached cautiously, a guilty expression crossing his face. She snapped, cutting him off. You thought I would celebrate you from a distance. That I wouldn't want to share in this moment. The crowd around them began to murmur, glances passing between onlookers. Jackson looked like someone caught in a trap, confusion swirling in his eyes. I didn't want you to think I was doing this for the attention, he stammered. Mia shook her head, her breath quickening. Doing it for attention, this isn't about fame, Jackson. This is about helping our community. I trusted you. We talked for hours about this project, about being open and honest. And then an uncomfortable silence settled, their words hanging in the air like a thick fog. Mia turned away, attempting to steady herself, each breath feeling like a jagged edge against her insides. How could someone she cared about so deeply misunderstand her so completely? Jackson shifted uneasily, his shoulders slumping. I thought it would be a nice surprise. A wave of anger surged within Mia, but beneath it, she felt disappointment swell. Like losing a part of what made their friendship whole. They had always promised each other their honest truths, no walls between them, but now the very foundation of their connection felt shaky. Maybe you should have asked me about it, shared it with me instead of keeping it to yourself. Her words were sharp, almost cruel, but there was a hurt in her heart that felt too big to contain. I'm sorry, Mia, truly, he said quietly, eyes pleading for her understanding. It wasn't meant to hurt you. I didn't want to overshadow you. In that moment, the tension in the room thickened. Mia could feel the eyes of the crowd bearing down, every whispered word a mirror reflecting her pain and confusion. Jackson looked genuinely remorseful, but anger flared within her. Was his regret enough to overshadow what felt like a breach of trust? She shot back, fists clenching at her sides. As the crowd began to scatter, moving further into their conversations and away from the tension at the front, Mia stayed planted in her spot, staring at the plaque, now feeling like a betrayal rather than a highlight of their labor. But Jackson, instead of retreating, stepped closer to her, lowering his voice. I know I messed up. I should have been honest. The sincerity in his tone momentarily pierced through the fog of anger clouding her mind. She wanted to push him away, to turn and walk in the opposite direction, but a flicker of something deeper tugged at her heart. Why, Jackson? He sighed, running a hand through his hair, looking as if the weight of the world pressed down on him. I guess I'm scared of being misunderstood, scared of losing you. I travel this world keeping parts of me hidden, just like I did today. And now look where it got us, she replied. In that moment, vulnerability swam in the air, fragile yet undeniable. She could see Jackson's inner conflict. Beneath all his layers was a truth waiting to be uncovered, and for the first time it felt like they could break free from their misunderstandings. I want to do better, he finally said, determination settling across his features. No more hiding. You deserve honesty. You deserve to be celebrated, not eclipsed by silence. Mia's pulse slowed slightly, her anger fading into something softer. She had wanted to smash the walls he built around himself for so long, but maybe it wouldn't start with force. Maybe it was an invitation to see the world in a different light, a light filled with mutual understanding. Okay, she said, her voice softer now, but let's make this a real partnership. No more secrets, no more surprises that could hurt us. Jackson nodded, relief flooding his face. Deal. I promise, he said, every word drenched in sincerity. The truth rising between them felt like a seed ready to sprout, filled with possibilities. As the sounds of laughter and chatter filled the gap behind them, Mia felt a renewed sense of hope. Maybe this was a chance not just to repair what had been strained, but to build something even stronger. They could be honest together, evolve together, and redefine their friendship. With a deep breath, Mia turned back to the crowd, and Jackson stood tall next to her. She felt his presence grounding her, reminding her that sometimes misunderstandings lead to breakthroughs. Together, they would navigate this winding road. In that moment of reconciliation, the excitement in the room ignited again, the laughter ringing loud as people connected once more. They would get through these growing pains. Mia looked up at the plaque, and instead of feeling the weight of betrayal, there was a shift in perspective. It wasn't just a list of names, it was a tapestry woven with the threads of trust and community. As she glanced at Jackson, she could see a flicker of realization in his eyes. He understood now what being a part of this community truly meant. Together, they faced the crowd, ready to celebrate not just their achievements, but a friendship poised for growth. The connection felt stronger, built on the foundation of honest communication. With every moment they spent together, they could mend the cracks, layer by layer, and create a bond that would thrive in the warmth of transparency. As the event continued, Mia knew this day wasn't just about the library. It was about finding strength through vulnerability. The journey ahead was unknown, but they would face it together, side by side, sharing every piece of their truth with each other. In that crowded room, surrounded by friends and community, they both knew they were ready to embrace whatever came next. Mia stood at the front of the community center, her nerves a live wire as the audience buzzed around her. The air was thick with anticipation, an electric charge crackling beneath the surface. Today was the day they would unveil the new library, a project she'd poured her heart into for over a year. She had rallied the community, hosted fundraisers, and spent countless nights drafting plans and dreaming big. This was her moment, and yet a fine knot of anxiety twisted in her stomach. As the crowd settled, Mia's eyes wandered toward the entrance again, searching for Jackson. He had promised he would be there, but as the starting time approached, the door remained closed, just like their unspoken tension. He had been distant lately, lost in his own world of work, missing meetings, and leaving her feeling more alone than ever. Then the door swung open with a creak, and there he was finally. Jackson strolled in with an easy smile, hair still slightly tousled as if he had run here directly from another commitment. A quick glance around revealed a few judgmental eyes watching him. Mia felt a wave of frustration crash over her. Why was he always late? Why did this happen time and time again? The director, standing at the front, began to speak. "Thank you all for being here today." Mia forced herself to focus, but her heart sank. She knew the moment was slipping away. Time ticked by with every passing second, and all she could think about was Jackson. When the director began to talk about the donors who made it all possible, Mia felt her heart quicken. This was the moment she had envisioned for so long. With a flourish, the director pulled back the cloth, revealing the plaque that bore the names of all who had contributed. Bold letters gleamed in the light, promises etched in gold. But as Mia scanned the list, everything around her faded. She froze, a cold sensation creeping through her as confusion twisted in her gut. There, standing proud amidst the names of community members and local businesses, was Jackson Miller *. The world spun and her breath hitched. How could he not tell her? It felt like the ground had dropped out from beneath her. She turned sharply, catching Jackson's eye. For a moment, he seemed to understand the gravity of the situation, an expression of shock dawning on his face. "Mia, I can explain," he began, but she raised a hand to silence him, her heart racing. She demanded, voice trembling slightly, "that you decided to keep this from me, after everything we discussed, after all the late nights planning." His expression shifted from surprise to fear, and for a fleeting moment she felt a flicker of empathy. But the anger surged back stronger. How could he possess the audacity to hide something this significant? "I thought it would be a nice surprise," he stammered, eyes darting around as murmurs spread through the crowd. She hissed, keeping her voice low yet charged with emotion. "This is not about you overshadowing me, this is about being honest." The tension in the air thickened, wrapping around them like a tight coil. The director, realizing the growing tension, cleared her throat, attempting to redirect the audience's focus back to the unveiling. "It's a big day," Mia felt dizzy. The words spun around her, lost in the whirlwind of her thoughts. How could she celebrate when trust felt broken? She took a step back, trying to ignore the crowd as whispers punctuated the air. Instead, her attention focused entirely on Jackson, whose face was a mixture of regret and concern. "I didn't mean for it to turn into this," Jackson said quietly, visibly shaken. "I wanted you to be proud." The words stung. "You thought hiding it would protect me. You should have known I would want to celebrate with you." "I thought about it over and over," he said, his voice shaky. "I wanted to contribute, to help, but I was scared of how you might react." In that vulnerable moment, something shifted in her heart. Beneath the anger and frustration, she understood. They were both navigating this complicated web of expectations and fears. She had always known Jackson was guarded, but to see him so exposed was unexpectedly profound. "Jackson," she softened her tone, "we promised we'd always be open with each other. This isn't just about the plaque, it's about our friendship, our trust." He interrupted, his voice rising as pain flickered across his features. "It's not about hiding. I didn't want to step on your toes." Mia took a deep breath, attempting to rein in her emotions. "But it's not easier, it never is. This moment isn't just about you or me, it should be about us." Silence enveloped them, tension thick enough to cut with a knife. Every pair of eyes in the room was on them, wondering what would happen next. Jackson looked lost, almost pleading for her understanding. A small part of her started to ache for him, recalling the countless times they had faced challenges together, always managing to find their way back. Finally, he dropped his gaze to the floor, shoulders slumping. "I understand now," he murmured, the weight of his own realization pulling down his voice. Mia felt the spark of something inside her begin to flutter. She let the words hang in the air, testing the waters. As Jackson glanced up again, his indecisiveness faded. "I don't want to run away from this anymore," he said. "I want to try again, a fresh start, no more secrets." His earnestness wrapped around her like a blanket, warming the frozen parts of her heart. She had felt anger, but now she felt something deeper, hope. "I want that too," she replied softly, surprised by her own vulnerability. "I want to celebrate our achievements. But it has to come from a place of honesty, Jackson, no more walls." He took a cautious step forward, looking her directly in the eyes. "I promise." Mia nodded slowly, feeling a slight lifting of the weight on her chest. In the middle of all this chaos, a thread of understanding began to weave through the fragments of their friendship. It felt like something worth striving for, something worth building again. As they stood there, both of them lost in thought, the crowd began to settle back down, slowly drifting toward the refreshment table. The energy in the room shifted, allowing a flicker of warmth to fill the space. Mia finally let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. "So?" she asked, the tension slowly diffusing. Jackson smiled faintly. "Please, no more speeches, just let's be a team again." As they walked back towards the crowd together, the air felt different, not just lighter, but filled with the promise of new beginnings. Mia caught sight of the plaque once more, but instead of bitterness, gratitude washed over her. This was not just an acknowledgement of contributions, it represented a deeper bond forged in honesty and respect. It represented a new chapter for them both. The crowd started to laugh and celebrate. Conversations floated around them like ribbons, weaving through the air. Jackson leaned toward Mia, breaking the silence they had shared in the whirlwind of emotions. With a smirk, she nudged him playfully. "You better." He laughed, the tension melting away like ice beneath sunlight. As they mingled, Mia felt a renewed joy blooming within her. This defeat turned victory had shifted the way they both saw each other. They had carved a path through misunderstandings, leading to a bright horizon filled with possibilities. Amidst the celebrations, Mia realized that they had both learned a valuable lesson. Honesty is a bridge that brings people closer, even when the waters feels murky. And as they faced the laughter and warmth of their friends, Mia glanced at Jackson, knowing they were both ready to embrace whatever came next, together. Mia's heart raced behind her ribcage as she stood at the front of the community center, the warm lights shining down on her. Today was the day the grand unveiling of the library she had fought hard to bring to life. After countless meetings and endless support from local businesses, today was the day she'd show the community what they had built together. The buzz of the crowd filled the air, excitement palpable, but with every second that ticked by, annoying anxiety settled in. She glanced at the clock on the wall and felt her stomach twist. Jackson was late again. He had promised he would be there, would stand by her side through this monumental moment. She looked at the door, half expecting him to walk in at any moment. But the door remained closed, and with it, the hope that he would arrive on time began to dwindle. As the director took the stage to kick off the ceremony, Mia forced herself to focus. Today is a celebration of community spirit, the director began, her voice ringing clear through the hall. Mia's heart swelled with pride, but there was still a heaviness in her chest. This moment was supposed to include Jackson. Their late-night conversations, dreams, and plans had always intertwined their futures, and now, in the very pinnacle of their achievement, he was missing. Just then, a quiet rustle caught her attention. The audience turned toward the door, and in strolled Jackson, breathless and wide-eyed. He called, his voice shaking a little. Her heart sank into her stomach. The murmurs around the room began, the tides of gossip swirling among the crowd. She shot him a glare, but Jackson seemed unfazed, flashing his trademark smile as if that could erase the frustration bubbling beneath the surface. How could he be so carefree? As the director continued speaking, Mia's mind drifted back to the numerous meetings they had attended together, how they had strategized and planned for this day, only for him to roll in as if it were an everyday occurrence. The excitement in the crowd swelled, and Mia's heartbeat quickened. This was it, the moment she had envisioned for so long. The director exclaimed, pulling the cloth away to reveal the plaque. The crowd gasped collectively, eyes gliding over the names etched in bronze. Mia felt a thrill run up her spine. She was ready to see it, their names among the marks of honor, but as her eyes scanned the list, all the joy drained from her. There it was, a name that felt like a punch to gut, Jackson Miller *. Mia froze, her breath hitching. It was a whirlwind of emotions spiraling inside her: anger, disbelief, confusion. She whirled around to face him, and for a moment time stood still. He looked just as surprised as if he were seeing his own name for the first time. The realization washed over her like a tidal wave, knocking her breath away. She shouted, her voice rising with utter disbelief. He stammered, eyes wide, glancing around at the crowd. "No, you can't just show up late and think this is okay." She shot back, her voice trembling with hurt. The whispers around them intensified, and Jackson shifted nervously. She echoed, sarcasm cutting through her words. "Do you think this is about surprises? You should have told me. This is not just about you or me. This is about our community and our trust." The crowd continued to murmur, glancing between her and Jackson. Mia could practically feel their curiosity fogging the air between them. She turned away, frustration boiling beneath her skin, trying to steady her breath. A mix of feelings churned inside her: anger at Jackson for hiding this, and an unsettling feeling of betrayal for something that should have brought them both joy. "I wanted to protect you," he said, frustration coloring his voice. She scoffed, her emotions bubbling over. "This isn't about that." In that moment, the tension crackled in the air like static electricity. Jackson looked torn, pained even, but she was done hiding from the truth of how she felt. "Look, I just wanted to be a good friend." The pain in his eyes softened her initial harshness just for a moment. In his vulnerable state, she recognized something deeper, a fear of being misunderstood, of being judged. She knew he was sincere, but it didn't change the hurt she felt. She countered, struggling to keep her voice steady. "This isn't a competition, Jackson. It shouldn't be about who's shining brighter." He took a step closer, his expression shifting from surprise to a deep sense of remorse. "I get it now," he admitted, his voice trembling with sincerity. "But I was scared. I wanted to be a part of this, but didn't think you'd allow me to share." Mia couldn't speak at that moment. She felt the walls built around her heart begin to crack. The realization hit her that Jackson had always struggled with vulnerability. He had been a loyal friend, but his fear of judgment often kept him trapped. Perhaps this wasn't about betrayal, but about deep-seated insecurities. "I don't want you to hide," Mia said softly, trying to ease the tension that surrounded them. "We've built this together, right?" Her tone softened the air around them, but the hurt lingered. She could sense him grappling with the magnitude of what had just transpired. He looked around as if realizing the weight of everyone's silence falling on their shoulders. "It was never my intention to keep you in the dark," he murmured, his eyes filled with regret and longing. "I just didn't know how to express it." Taking a breath, Mia felt the warmth of their connection slip back into focus. "We can find a way to make this work," she said, voice steadying. "But it has to start with honesty. No more secrets, Jackson." He nodded slowly, the tension in his body beginning to ease. Okay, I promise I won't hide any part of myself anymore, he said, his voice filled with sincerity. Taking a deep breath, Mia felt a change in the air. The anger that once felt insurmountable began to dissolve as they stood together, ready to confront the unexpected mists of misunderstanding. Maybe this was a turning point in their friendship, a chance to rebuild with honesty carved into every interaction. As the crowd shifted around them, the electricity in the air started to pulse with a new energy. Mia glanced back at the plaque adorning the wall, and rather than feeling betrayed, she felt a rush of pride. It was not merely a list of names, but a testament to the importance of community and the resilience of friendship. Turning to Jackson, she offered a tentative smile. Let's not let this moment slip away from us. The warmth in his smile matched her own. Absolutely. With renewed purpose, Mia and Jackson rejoined the crowd, hand in hand. Laughter and chatter filled the air once more, and as the ceremony continued, they were enveloped by the supportive energy of their community. While the past had tested them, the present opened doors to endless possibilities. They knew challenges lay ahead, but together, they stood ready to embrace whatever life threw their way. Not just as friends, but as partners, sharing every triumph and every struggle. As applause echoed throughout the hall, Mia glanced down at the plaque once more, now shining as a symbol of new beginnings, transformed connections, and trust. It wasn't just a list, it was a promise to be there for each other, openly and honestly, every step of the way. And in that moment, she knew they were both ready to forge ahead, leaving behind their fears and stepping into a future filled with hope. Mia stood in front of the crowd, her heart pounding like a drum. Today was the day, the grand unveiling of the community library, a project she had poured her soul into. This was supposed to be a celebration, a moment of triumph, yet as she glanced at the entrance for the third time, anxiety coiled in her stomach like a tight spring. Jackson was late. Even now, as the director began to speak about the library's impact, Mia's mind drifted to Jackson. He had promised to be here early to help her set up, to support her. But now the seconds ticked away, each one fueling her frustration. She felt the weight of expectations pressing down on her, and the crowd's murmurs began to blur into white noise. Finally, the doors creaked open, and walked Jackson, seemingly unfazed by the late arrival. His hair was tousled and his shirt was crumpled, and as he scanned the room, a nervous smile crept across his face. But the moment he spotted Mia's expression, that smile quickly faded, replaced by a look of concern. He called out, hurrying towards her. She shot back, trying to keep her voice low. Disappointment washed over her, and she could feel her heart sink. Jackson said, his voice strained. As the director continued talking about the contributors who helped make the library possible, Mia tried to focus on the moment, but disappointment gnawed at her. She wanted today to be perfect, a day where their hard work was recognized, but instead it felt marred by Jackson's absence. The crowd hushed, excitement filling the air like electricity. Mia felt her nerves spike again, the anticipation almost overwhelming. She held her breath as the director pulled back the cloth, revealing the names etched in polished wood. Mia's heart raced, the thrill of finally seeing their achievements on display fluttering through her. But as she scanned the plaque, all the joy evaporated in an instant. There was Jackson's name, large and bold, shining under the bright lights. In a split second, her world spun. The crowd around her faded into a blur. Jackson Miller asterisk. Why hadn't he told her? Confusion and betrayal tightened around her like a noose. She turned to him, her voice barely above a whisper, but sharp as glass. His eyes widened, realization crashing over him like a wave. He stammered, stepping closer but still holding back. She echoed incredulously, her heart racing with anger. The murmurs of the crowd grew louder, curiosity and judgment mixing in the atmosphere. Jackson looked like he had lost his footing on solid ground. He took a half step back, unsure how to navigate the mess he had created. He said, desperation coloring his voice. I thought if I surprised you with my donation, it would be meaningful. Unbelievable. Mia felt her breath hitch in her throat. Take away from my moment. The tension hung thick between them, and her pulse quickened with every moment they stood there. She could already hear whispers floating through the crowd, their eager eyes scanning the two of them, judgment at the forefront. She shifted her gaze to the plaque again, frustrated, tears pricking at her eyes. As the director fumbled with her notes, trying to regain control of the event, Mia turned to Jackson. How could you think keeping this to yourself would protect me? We've talked about everything we were building together. He looked down, shoulders slumping. I just didn't want to ruin the moment, he mumbled, his voice barely audible. She snapped, her heart thudding, scared of honest communication. Slowly, realization began to dawn in his eyes. I wanted you to shine. I thought this library would mean so much to you, and you didn't need me stepping and looking for praise. That's not how this works, she shot back, trying to maintain her composure. This isn't about you trying to shine or protect me. The crowd began to shift uncomfortably, and the tension hung heavy in the air. Mia felt exposed, like everyone was waiting for her to implode. But beneath the frustration, she felt a flicker of understanding. Jackson had always been the kind of person who kept his feelings close to the vest, fearful of how they'd be received. I thought keeping it quiet would let you lead, he implored, desperation creeping into his voice. Mia sighed, frustration mixing with compassion. You didn't give me the chance to celebrate it with you. He nodded slowly, his expression pained but sincere. "I messed up," he said. "I thought I was doing what was best." This was the moment when everything shifted. The truth hung like a fragile thread between them, one that could either break or strengthen their friendship. Mia took a deep breath, feeling the walls she had built around her heart begin to crumble. "Look, I'm not mad that you wanted to help," she said, softening her tone. "I'm hurt because you hid it from me. We're a team in this. We should share both the achievements and the struggles." Jackson's eyes flickered with understanding, shame washing over him. "I really want to do better. I don't want any secrets between us anymore." Mia felt a wave of hope wash over her. "I'd like that," she said, "but you have to promise me that next time honesty is at the forefront." "I promise," he replied, a note of determination ringing in his voice. No more walls. Around them, the crowd began to settle, chirping conversations breaking through the tension. Mia felt a strange sense of clarity taking its place. She was ready to move forward to mend the rift caused by misunderstanding. As the director called everyone to gather around the plaque for photos, Mia took a deep breath, glancing over at Jackson. There was a flicker of something new between them, a bond fortified through vulnerability. They stepped forward together, side by side, the warmth of friendship enveloping them again. "This isn't just about my name on a plaque or your name," Mia said softly. "It's about our contributions together." With each smile from the crowd, she felt the burden of earlier frustrations melt away. They were in this together. They had built this library not as individuals but as partners, entwined in a shared mission of community and growth. The anticipation of photos shot through the crowd, laughter mingling with the memories of hard work and late nights spent dreaming. Mia chuckled, the tension easing into a cozy warmth. "Good idea, we'll make a plan together." As the flash of cameras lit the room, Mia felt a profound sense of relief. They stood strong, ready to tackle whatever came next side by side. With every click capturing their smiles, they forged ahead toward a renewed friendship built on honesty and understanding. This day became a pivotal moment, reminding them that the foundation of any relationship lies in transparency and trust. The plaque behind them gleamed with their names, signifying not just their contributions, but an unbreakable bond formed through shared experiences and honest communication. As the crowd cheered and laughter filled the air, Mia knew they had grown closer through the struggles and misunderstandings. They were ready to continue this journey together, hand in hand, embracing the future with a renewed sense of purpose and connection. No secrets, no walls, just a solid foundation of honesty and trust. This was only the beginning. Mia's heart raced as she adjusted her dress for what felt like the 100th time. Today was significant, the unveiling of the community library they had all worked so hard to build. Standing on the stage with the crowd buzzing in excitement, she couldn't shake the gnawing anxiety in her stomach. Every moment felt like a countdown, and she found herself glancing at the entrance more than once. She had prepared every detail for this moment, from the speeches to the decoration. But as she scanned the faces in the crowd, anxiety tightened its grip. Where was Jackson? Their friendship had always been solid, built on trust and shared dreams. They were supposed to be partners in this endeavor. Yet here she was, about to unveil something monumental, and he was nowhere to be seen. Disappointment washed over her, leaving her with a bitter taste. As the time ticked closer, the director took the microphone, rallying the crowd. "Welcome everyone to the opening of our new library." The applause swelled, and Mia felt a blaze of pride. But that pride was overshadowed every time she looked back at the entrance. Then, just as the director began to speak of the donors who made this dream a reality, the door swung open. Jackson hustled in, slightly out of breath, hair a chaotic mess. Mia felt a mix of relief and irritation. He had made it, but late again. He called, his smile bright but unconvincing. She could already feel the crowd shifting their attention, whispers flowing like water around them. "Thought you wouldn't make it," she muttered, trying to keep her disappointment at bay. I know, I was caught up with last-minute work stuff," he replied, brushing off her reaction. But the sincerity was lacking, and Mia could hardly mask her frustration. The director continued, ignoring the tension building between them. "Without the generous donations of individuals and businesses, we wouldn't have this space to share." The audience leaned forward, and Mia's heart surged. This was the moment she had envisioned, the anticipation building like a wave ready to crash. She could already picture the applause, the pride flowing through the room, especially with Jackson standing beside her. But the moment the director pulled away the cloth, Mia felt her stomach drop like a stone. There it was, Jackson Miller *. His name glimmered in gold on the plaque. Shock froze Mia in place, her breath hitching. She turned to Jackson, whose expression mirrored her shock. She managed to say, her voice barely above a whisper. Jackson looked like he had just seen a ghost, guilt flooding his features. He blurted out, stepping closer but still holding back, "Explain." She retorted, her voice rising. The anger she felt was immense, and she fought to keep her composure. "You should have shared this with me." The crowd shifted uncomfortably, sensing the growing tension. Jackson looked around, shame creeping into his features. "I thought it would be a surprise," he said quietly, his voice trembling. "A surprise? This isn't about gifts or surprises," she shouted, the frustration spilling over. His eyes flickered with embarrassment, and for a moment he looked lost. "I wanted to support you without drawing attention to myself," he confessed. The hurt softened her anger, even if just a little. Mia took a deep breath, trying to break the tension. "This isn't about overshadowing Jackson. This is about honesty between us." He ran his hand through his hair, the frustration evident. "I know I should have told you, but I thought I could manage it." Mia felt her stomach twist. This isn't just a name on a plaque, it's our partnership. The weight of their unresolved issues hung between them like a thick fog. Jackson's shoulders sagged as he looked down. "I messed up," he said, his voice barely a whisper. For a moment they stood there silent, the noise of the crowd around them fading into background chatter. She could see the regret in his eyes, and it pierced through her anger. He wasn't a villain, he was just a scared person, afraid of stepping into the spotlight. "Maybe we both need to face our fears," Mia suggested, her voice softer now. "We've both been holding on to things that keep us from moving forward." Jackson nodded slowly. "I really want to change. I don't want to hide anymore," he said, sincerity written across his face. "Then let's start fresh," Mia offered, a small smile breaking through. "Next time, let's promise to be completely honest, no secrets." He met her gaze, a flicker of hope igniting his eyes. "Absolutely, I promise." As they turned back toward the crowd, the air felt lighter, infused with a sense of possibility. Mia felt a strange mixture of relief and hope. It was a starting point, not just for their friendship, but for the vision they shared. "Let's try again," Mia said, her heart racing with renewed energy. The director was gathering attention from the audience again, ready to move on to the next step of the celebration, but Mia felt a shift within herself. She had known something needed to change, and maybe this moment, their moment, was the catalyst. The crowd roared with applause, snapping her back into the present. Laughter and excitement filled the room as they repositioned alongside the plaque, the energy shifting into something brighter. As applause echoed through the room, Mia felt Jackson's shoulder bump against hers, a silent exchange that spoke volumes. Together they stood, ready to face whatever came next. The plaque behind them sparkled in the light, but instead of the sting of deceit, it now evoked a warmth. In that moment, they were not just names on a plaque, but parts of something far more important. They were a community built on trust, dreams, and most importantly, open communication. They could navigate the bumps along the way, if only they faced them together. As the celebration continued, Mia exchanged glances with Jackson, who was smiling for the first time without hesitation. Their friendship had, against all odds, emerged stronger. With renewed purpose, they would build their community and their dreams side by side. Amidst the laughter and chatter, Mia understood that today was not just a celebration of a library. It was a reminder of the resilience in every relationship. Sometimes, the hardest conversations lead to the most profound connections. The road ahead would have its challenges, no doubt, but they were ready to take it on together, one honest step at a time. As the event progressed, Mia felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. They had transformed a potentially disastrous moment into a beginning, shaped not just by individual names, but by collective resilience. Just like the library they had built, their friendship stood firm, fortified by honesty and the shared understanding that every setback can become a stepping stone, teaching valuable lessons along the way. Together, with every click of a camera capturing their spirit and mutual commitment, they embraced a future marked by trust and collaboration. And in that moment, surrounded by the community they both cherished, Mia knew they were poised to take on the world with unwavering hearts. Every challenge transformed into an opportunity, embarking on a journey that would last a lifetime. Mia stood backstage, her heart racing as the buzz of the crowd echoed in her ears. Today was a moment she had worked tirelessly for. After months of fundraising, planning, and pouring everything she had into this project, they were finally unveiling the community library. As she peeked through the curtains, she caught sight of the excited faces of friends, family, and neighbors. But there was one face missing: Jackson. He had promised he would be there. Anxiety twisted in her stomach as she glanced at the clock again. Time seemed to stretch on forever. All she could think about was how crucial this day was for both of them. They had shared late-night brainstorming sessions, heated discussions, and dreams of what this library could bring to the community. And now he was late. When the director finally called everyone to gather, Mia felt a wave of panic surge through her. She whispered to herself, hoping he would show up at the last minute. "Ladies and gentlemen," the director announced, "thank you all for being here today. We are about to unveil a beautiful new chapter for our community." The applause was thunderous, echoing against the high walls as anticipation filled the air. Mia focused on the stage, her heart swelling with pride. In that moment, everything felt achievable, inching closer to becoming reality. Yet a flicker of frustration tainted the excitement. Jackson had said he would help with the setup. Was he really prioritizing something else over this significant day? Just as she felt her hopes begin to dwindle, the door opened. A rush of relief washed over her as Jackson walked in, slightly frazzled but with that signature smile on his face. He called out an unapologetic lilt to his voice that made her want to scream. She muttered under her breath, her irritation bubbling to the surface. Jackson seemed unfazed, waving his hand dismissively. He assured her, flashing a smile that felt more like a distraction than a genuine acknowledgement of her feelings. The director continued to speak, highlighting the contributions made by local businesses and community members. As she did, Mia's irritation morphed into something heavier, a swirling mix of disappointment and anxiety. The moment was slipping away, and all she could feel was that Jackson hadn't shown up when it mattered. The director proclaimed, her voice rising, making Mia's heart leap with anticipation. Suddenly, Mia felt an electric charge in the air. The director pulled back the cloth to reveal the plaque, and the crowd erupted into applause. As everyone leaned in to see the names, Mia's excitement dimmed, stomach twisting. She took a step closer, the words on the plaque rushing towards her like an oncoming train. But there it was, Jackson Miller *. Frozen, Mia's heart dropped to her stomach. She turned to him, disbelief etched across her face. "You." The blood drained from Jackson's face as he saw the realization dawn in Mia's eyes. For a brief moment, the applause faded into silence around them. "Mia, I didn't think it'd be a big deal. I thought it would be a surprise," he stuttered, scrambling for words. Her voice trembled, a mix of hurt and betrayal pouring out. "This is a major moment, Jackson. You didn't think I'd want to know." Crowd's murmur began to swell around them, like a tide rising, curiosity and confusion mixing in the air. Jackson's shoulders slumped, and he looked around, the weight of the moment crashing down around him. "I didn't want to overshadow you. You've worked so hard for this," he said quietly, but his words felt hollow to her. "Overshadow? This isn't about you trying to take away from me. This is about us." Pain shot through her chest as the words hung in the air between them, sharp and unforgiving. She watched as Jackson's gaze dropped to the floor, his expression torn. "I thought if I surprised you with my contribution, you'd appreciate it more." Mia took a deep breath, her anger slipping away just enough for clarity to seep in. The truth lay buried deep in Jackson's unease. She realized he had always been the type to avoid confrontation, scared to open up, afraid that expressing himself might invite judgment or disbelief. "This isn't just a late donation, Jackson. It's about our partnership." Her voice softened, but the hurt remained, unraveling like a thread pulled from a tapestry. Silence engulfed them, and Mia could practically hear the wheels turning in his mind. "I messed up, you're right," he finally murmured, his voice barely above a whisper. "I thought I was doing something good. Good intentions don't excuse dishonesty," she replied, her heart aching. "This was supposed to be our triumph, our community united." He looked remorseful, his eyes searching hers for understanding. "I'll do better, I'll communicate honestly from now on. I just got scared." In that instant, Mia sensed something shift inside her. Behind Jackson's fear, there was a genuine longing to connect. "I need to know you're with me on this. We can't build something lasting on secrets and miscommunication," she said gently. "I promise," he responded, the sincerity in his voice starting to thaw the ice around her heart. "I want to build this community together." With those words, she felt a flicker of hope ignite. They were still standing on shifting ground, but with honesty as their foundation, they could construct something stronger, something lasting. As their eyes locked, the air began to shift around them. The crowd had fallen silent, captivated by the intensity of their exchange, but Mia could feel a collective heartbeat pulsing through the room. A swell of understanding began to envelop them, igniting a connection built on vulnerability. "I know we can do this," she said softly, her voice steadying. Jackson nodded, a small smile emerging. "I'm in." The warmth of reconciliation started to melt the tension that hung like a cloud. As the crowd resumed their chatter, Mia felt a renewed sense of purpose. They could face whatever came next as a united front. But just as they turned back to the audience, the door swung open again, and a figure walked in, a woman dressed sharply, with a clipboard in hand and determination in her stride. Mia's heart sank when she recognized her. It was Lee, the town's most influential real estate developer and someone who had always been skeptical about community-driven initiatives. "Excuse me," Lee's voice cut through the crowd, silencing everyone again. Tension ricocheted off the walls. Mia felt Jackson stiffen at her side. For a fleeting moment, hope wavered. Lee held the power to change everything in an instant. "I've been watching this project closely," Lee continued, her eyes narrowing as she glanced between Mia and Jackson. "And while I appreciate the effort, I have concerns about the funding." Murmurs swirled around them, the crowd uncertain how to react. Mia braced herself, sensing the momentum of the day shift uncomfortably. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. Why was Lee here to disrupt their hard work? Jackson leaned closer. "I don't know, but this isn't good," Mia whispered back, her heart racing again. Mia asked, trying to maintain her composure, but Lee pressed on, sliding her clipboard into view. "I've reviewed your funding model, and frankly, it's lacking." Mia could feel the color drain from her face. This was an unexpected curveball, one that could unravel everything. He had fought for this dream, and yet here was a voice threatening to drown that dream in a sea of uncertainty. Jackson's voice rose, frustration washing over him. "Working hard isn't enough," Lee shot back, her tone cutting. "You need to impress upon investors that this library is more than just a building." Mia took a deep breath, feeling everything she had built on the brink of collapse. "This library is for the community," Lee remained unfazed, "and that's why it's not likely to survive the long haul. You need an actionable plan." The words hung in the air like a dark cloud, casting shadows over the audience. They were here to celebrate, and now it felt like a storm was brewing. Mia felt the weight of Lee's scrutiny like 1,000 eyes boring into her. What if she was right? What if they hadn't planned sufficiently? For Jackson, a flicker of determination ignited in his chest. We can refine the plan. We can make it better involve the community in ways that exceed expectations. There's still time, he urged, sharing a look with Mia that spoke volumes. But Lee wasn't finished. She leaned in closer. With all due respect, unless you take this seriously, you'll be facing more than just financial issues. You'll lose the community's trust. And just like that, the ground beneath Mia felt unsteady again, the promise they had just forged hanging by a thread. It felt like another mountain to climb, and the thought of slipping back into the shadows gnawed at her heart. Mia turned to Jackson, searching his face. They had just rebuilt their bond, but this could change everything. She asked him desperately, feeling the weight of uncertainty settle in. Jackson met her gaze, determination surging anew. We fight for this, Mia, we adapt. But as the tension in the room mounted, Lee's critical gaze pierced through Mia's thoughts. She realized this was not just a challenge. It was the battle for their vision, a moment that could define their future. But just like that, the question lingered in the air, heavy and unspoken. Uncertainty loomed over them as the audience watched, captivated and concerned. The wind had shifted, and they were standing on the precipice of something life-changing. Would they rise to the challenge, or would this moment shatter everything they had fought for?